Hello everyone and welcome back to the Football Forecast. Today's going to be reviewing every Premier League game from Gameweek 12. If you enjoy this, it would be great if you could subscribe to YouTube channel. So starting off with Burnley Chelsea, and it was just a classic sort of early year kick-off after international break, where I don't think Chelsea were really at the quality level they needed to be, and it was just a sort of game where you just needed to get over the line with 3 points. Burnley have shown so far this season they're going to be a difficult side, I think. At home at points, they can cause those top sides problems. We saw this against Liverpool. Liverpool had to get a last-minute goal to win against Burnley. So that's what they did. They just made it difficult. And I think they can be happy with the 3 points. I think Maresca was very happy just getting over the line for that result. It was a very good ball for the first goal as well from Barragut's superb ball into Pedro Neto at back post. Maybe it was overhit a bit. Maybe the initial target was Enzo Fernandez, but Neto did arrive and was free at back post to score the first goal. And Chelsea kept pushing. They had some more chances. I thought they looked slightly better with Delap up front than João Pedro and Tim. I think that's where João Pedro is going to excel while Delap's out. So I think that's good that Chelsea now have more of sort of a competent attack. I still would like to see more from Esteval, but I thought, as I said, I thought Gittins and Neto were good today. And then Chelsea did round it up with some very good play by Mark Gui. Could I have thought that the Sunderland defence could have done better? Yes, I think they could have. Mark Gui sort of just bodied them, and then he cut it back to Enzo Fernandez, and Enzo Fernandez gave Chelsea the 2-0 win. I'd say pretty deserved 3 points. Burnley had a couple of chances. The main one was Fleming's chance off his left foot, sort of halfway through the second half. If they score that, then maybe the game does change. So then we're on to Wolves, Crystal Palace, and it was simple. Rob Edwards needed to make a good start at Wolves because they need to start picking up points immediately, and they didn't do this. I didn't expect this to happen. I think Crystal Palace are way too good of a side compared to Wolves. It's really that simple. They've got a lot more quality in their side, and Wolves, for me, just look like a championship side, and they don't even look like a top championship side right now. They just don't have enough quality, and it's that simple. It doesn't matter who's in charge. I don't think Wolves are staying up, and that's what we saw in this game. They had a couple of chances, Wolves, at points, but they never really threw it in. Then looking at the Crystal Palace performance, and Daniel Munoz scored the first goal for Palace in this game, and it came from a deflected shot from Wharton. Munoz was there and he finished it in the back of the net, and this allowed Palace, I think, to also sort of get more, force Wolves to sort of attack more, and this gave Palace more chances, and eventually Wharton played a good ball into Yeremy Pino, and it was a brilliant finish from Yeremy Pino into the top right hand corner, and Palace deserved the 3 points against a woeful Wolves side. They could have been better. There were chances where Wolves threatened, but they just didn't have enough to get the job done. But against Wolves, you don't have to be at your best. That's the problem with Wolves. Most Premier League sides this season, I think, have forced teams to be at their best to beat them. Wolves just don't. It's that simple. You can be at 50% and beat this Wolves side. They're that crap. And that's what we saw. Wolves had chances, but they couldn't put them away. I thought Adam Wharton was an absolute standout player for Crystal Palace today. His distribution with his passing was absolutely brilliant. I thought Jean-Philippe Mateta will be disappointed with his performance because he should have scored in the first half. He had a great chance, but he missed the target. So then we're on to Bournemouth West Ham, and I think Bournemouth will be wondering how on earth did they not win this game. West Ham will be pretty lucky, I think, and be pretty happy the fact they actually got anything from this game. And it started off with a goal for West Ham with a long punt up the field from Areola getting an assist because it was brilliantly taken down by Callum Wilson. The finish wasn't great from outside the box. It was actually really poor keeping from Petrovic, and it was a bit of a tale of the keepers. Then the second goal was once again scored by Callum Wilson, and it's just a brilliant instinctive finish. It is a brilliant goal from Wilson, and that's what he is. He's very good with those sort of instinctive finishes. He can create something out of nothing. He knows where to be, and that is sort of the role that Callum Wilson gives West Ham. And right now he's looking like a key player in terms of them staying up. And then after this, Bournemouth just kept pushing. They kept pushing for the first goal, and Areola made a couple of good saves, and eventually it did come, and it was through a penalty, 100% penalty. There's no debate about this. Max Kilman has deliberately handballed the ball. And then Justin Kluivert converted the penalty for Bournemouth to get themselves back into this game. And eventually they did find the equaliser through Unal. And it was a brilliant turn and finish, a brilliant piece of work. And at this point, I think people thought, Bournemouth are going to go on and win this. But Areola had previously made some brilliant saves. He made one just before this and made more after to keep West Ham in this game and to get them a point. And I've been critical of Areola, but he definitely was a main reason why West Ham got anything from this game. And this game was a tale of two keepers. Petrovic was poor on that first goal, and that completely changed the game, because once you go 2-0 down, it's very hard to come back and win the game. Then you look at Areola, and Areola was absolutely superb and kept West Ham in the game and got an assist. So then we're on to Brighton-Brentford, and this was a good game to watch. It started off with Igor Thiago converting a penalty after Dango Tara won the penalty to put Brentford 1-0 up. Then into the second half, Brighton started to look more like a threat. I thought Yankuba Minte was absolutely brilliant. He put the ball in the box, over the top ball into the box for Danny Welbeck, and it was just a brilliant finish from Danny Welbeck. That was a superb finish. And then Hinshelwood gave Brighton what looked like to be the winner, and it was the winning goal after another good work by Minte. Minte's deflected shot landed out to Hinshelwood. Maybe Minte could have looked for an option there, but it's sort of the dribbling, his ability to get into the box and be a threat. And I thought he was brilliant today, Minte. And that's when it looked like the game was going to end. But in the final moments, Brentford won a penalty after Kevin Schade was judged to have been pulled down to the ground. And usually you don't see penalties given for this, but in this scenario, a penalty was given. And Igor Thiago's penalty, though, this time was saved by Verbruggen to give Brighton the 3 points in this game. And this could have been a difficult game for Brighton. Brentford have caused teams problems more at home at the G-Tech, but they have been a good side, I think, Brentford. They're just very competent, and you know they're going to give you a tough game no matter what. So then we're on to Fulham-Sunderland, a game where there were chances for both sides, but Fulham eventually did score the winner. I think this was a fair result, though. I think Fulham had the better chances. Maybe this wasn't the way it was going to come through. For Harry Wilson should have scored for Fulham in this game. He had a couple of good chances off his left foot, and usually you would back Wilson to score off his left foot. But eventually the goal did come, and it was through for Raul Jimenez. It was a good ball in to him, but Dan Ballard has to be doing, just get the ball out. He's trying to shield Jimenez. He should be more focused about the ball, and he just needs to clear his lines. And that's a scenario. This is late in the game in the 84th minute, and that would have given Sunderland most likely a point in this game. I don't think this is a terrible result for Sunderland. I think there's going to be games like this where they will lose, because we've got to remember, despite them playing so well right now, they are still not going to be a top Premier League side most likely this season. They're still probably going to lie around mid-table, and Fulham are probably going to be another mid-table Premier League side by the end of the season. Fulham away is always difficult. Fulham have been in good sides there in the past, and I'm not surprised that this result really happened. I don't think this is a game that where Sunderland should be really worried. They're still easily going to stay up, and anything more than that, if they can get themselves into top half, is a brilliant result for the season. So then we're on to Liverpool, Nottingham Forest, and Liverpool have lost 3-0 to Forest, and honestly, I just can't believe what I'm really watching. We are in absolute crisis. The only way to put this was the worst performance of the lot. Of all the 6 out of 7 of the last games that we have lost in the Premier League, this would be the worst. And to come at Anfield to be one of our record losses ever in the Premier League at home is just absolutely appalling. That's the only way to really put this, and I just don't know where Liverpool go from here, because we actually started alright, but I think Slot was right with what he said. The players are just lacking confidence in front of goal, and maybe if we go 1-0 up, the game is different, but there's no excuses. And then Murillo scored the first goal from a set piece, a bit scrappy and poor defending for that first goal. And look, is he offside? Is someone in the way of Alisson? I would probably say yes, based off the Manchester City goal. But let's be honest, we can't be complaining about VAR because we can't be complaining about refs because we know they're crap. It's that simple. So there's no point complaining about it, and there's no point making excuses for this performance. And then we went into half time, and you're like, okay, Liverpool need to come out with a really good performance in the second half to get the win. And then immediately after, Savano scores to send Forest basically 2-0 up, and from then it was basically game over. So the only way to put that, and then Gibbs White finished it off to make it 3-0 win for Nottingham Forest. So where do Liverpool go from here? And I think a lot of people will be screaming Slot out. I'm not sure if it's going to make a huge difference. I actually think that it could make it worse to an extent. I think that the players are the ones that are more at blame. I watched those performances and it's individual mistakes. It's just poor defending. I do think where I'm concerned around the system, and there's lots of concerns, the main concern is the amount of chances we gave up in that second half especially. And look, you could say that by then Liverpool had basically given up on the game. Well, that's poor. You can't be doing this. And it was just showing in this game. For Forest, they deserve a massive amount of credit winning 3-0 over Liverpool. They were brilliant, and Sean Dyche got the game plan spot on, hit Liverpool on the break, use set pieces, use height, and that's exactly what they did, and they deserve to win this game. But Liverpool need to sort this out quickly. Otherwise, I really think top 4 is not looking very likely right now. We're currently in 11th place and we're just tumbling down the table. Every week it's getting that much worse, and losing at home like this is just something that you just wouldn't expect under Liverpool. I've been comparing this to the Klopp season, but this isn't the sort of result that even under that Klopp sort of 22-23 season we would have had. We lost, I think, 2-1 to Leeds at home, and that was about it. Apart from that, our home form stayed pretty well. Right now that's a concern. We can't win games at home and we're not winning away. Let me know your thoughts on this game, and if you enjoy this, it would be great if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel. So then we've got Newcastle United getting a vital 3 points over Manchester City. And look, this is really important for Newcastle United. And look, at the start, it was a pretty balanced game. But Nick Voltemade should have put Newcastle 1 or 2 goals up. It's that simple. And he missed some crucial chances in the first half. And there should have been a goal maybe for either side. Newcastle United did look more likely. Haaland had a good sort of one-on-one chances for the first couple of minutes. But it was Newcastle that went in front after half-time through Harvey Barnes. A good finish into the corner by Harvey Barnes that was. And immediately Manchester City replied from the corner through Ruben Diaz. And look, this would have been frustrating Newcastle considering they'd just taken the 1-0 lead. And it looked like maybe City could go on and win this game. But immediately after, Barnes gave Newcastle the winner with a good volley. And look, I thought from the naked eye that that Bruno Guimaraes was going to be given offside. But it turns out he was slightly onside. He hit the crossbar, and then Barnes applied the finish after hit the crossbar. And look, Newcastle United, I thought, were slightly lucky maybe throughout this game. There were a couple of potential penalty shouts, but overall, it's still a very important 3 points for them. Now, do I think Newcastle United are back? For me, I don't think Newcastle United are quite back yet. I still think that they could be back at some point, but I just think fixture congestion, their away form is still pretty awful. It's going to cause Newcastle some problems throughout this season. So until I see sort of 3 or 4 wins in a row, I'm not willing to say I think Newcastle United are heading in the right direction. This could still be a one-off result. For Manchester City, I think this is a really damaging loss because I think Manchester City were starting to establish themselves in the title race. They'd just come off a really good 3-0 win against Liverpool, and they started to look like a very dangerous side. But to lose this game is just, I think, so frustrating for them. So then we're on to a game which was filled with controversy between Leeds and Aston Villa. And it started off the controversy straight away with Leeds' goal being allowed. There's been a lot of discussion around, was there too much contact on Emi Martinez when he looked to punch the ball? I don't think so. I think the game's got a bit soft for this. But I think based off the rules, you'd probably say there was quite a bit of contact there based off the previous decisions. And maybe Nmecha should have, maybe it was a foul by Nmecha. He eventually does put the ball in the back of the net. But I think everyone's discouraging the fact there was a great ball in from Sean Longstaff as well. Then Morgan Rogers equalised for Aston Villa. It was a good ball in to Rogers and a very good finish from Morgan Rogers. When he plays well, Villa play well. It's that simple. And he scored the second goal for Aston Villa, which was a brilliant free kick. And I really do think we should be questioning the positioning of Lucas Perry here. I think that his goalkeeping positioning was really poor.
And Leeds thought they'd equalised through Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but he was adjudged to have handled the ball, which he did. His hand does touch the ball, and that sort of scenario is always going to be disallowed. Maybe if it's outfield, it might be a slightly different call. It was actually very good work from Dan James, but Calvert-Lewin's going to be doing better than that. He doesn't need his hand anywhere near the ball.
I think that is a very good 3 points for Aston Villa away at Leeds United. Leeds have proven that they can cause teams problems at home, and I think that not every team is going to go to Leeds and win, and that will be what keeps Leeds up. They've got to be winning these sort of games, and that is a poor result, I think, for Leeds. I know Villa is a difficult side. They've won 5 out of the last 6. But this is the sort of game where Leeds going to be looking at it going, okay, this is a game where we potentially need 3 points. I do think Daniel Farke is under pressure. I can see him getting sacked in the next 3 games because I don't think he's a manager that's realistically going to keep you up. I think they were better off sacking him at the start of the season, which was the initial plan, I think, but then they sort of changed their mind because his record isn't good enough. I don't think the squad's quite good enough, but neither do I think the manager is. So on to Arsenal Spurs, and Arsenal were absolutely brilliant today against Spurs, winning 4-1. And it all started with a great goal from Trossard, a great turn and finish. But the main man who scored the next 3 goals for Arsenal, Eberechi Eze, he was absolutely superb, picking up a hat-trick today. And all of those finishes were brilliant. And he really does deserve credit for this amazing performance for Arsenal today. That's the only sort of way to sort of sum this up in such an important game. But it does just feel like such a Spurs thing to happen, right? You look to sign a player, your rivals pick up the player, and then he scores 3 goals in the North London derby. And look, it was absolutely brilliant today. I don't want to belittle Eze's performance, but the one thing I would just sort of caveat with it, we do see with Eze, he goes through purple patches of just absolutely brilliant form. And look, this is great, but at the other time, he can struggle a bit. And we saw this a lot with Crystal Palace. He was never an outstanding player for the whole year, but he goes through sort of, 10 games where he's absolutely outstanding. And we might see this for Arsenal now. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on a run of form. And he could have had a 4th goal. He was that good today. Eze, looking at sort of some of the other performances, I think we've got to talk about Spurs as a whole. Spurs were absolutely shocking today. That is the only way to describe Spurs' performance. And there has to be a serious quick question around Thomas Frank. Because look, Thomas Frank, he's done a decent job with Spurs so far this season. But he continues to fail in home games and important games like this. For example, the Chelsea game. I couldn't believe the performance against Chelsea. It was horrendous at home. It was absolutely dire to watch. 0.05 XG. Well, they got a 0.06 XG today. And it was absolutely terrible to watch. And you just can't play like this in a North London derby. You're never going to win. You soaked up way too much pressure, and Arsenal eventually, when the first goal came, as soon as the first goal comes in that game, it is Arsenal's game. It's that simple because there's no plan B. There was no plan B. It wasn't like, we're going 1-0 down now, let's have a look at a different strategy. As soon as they went 1-0 down, the goals continued to fly, and Spurs offered no free. The only reason they actually scored was because of a brilliant finish from Richarlison. I do think that we need to maybe talk about David Raya here, and I'm not talking about the player. This is the only criticism of Arteta. And look, I get why he does it. He wants a keeper that can get off his line quickly in case Spurs get him behind. But this is something we've seen before, for example, the Crystal Palace game. And Raya has been caught out in the past. Sometimes he's done brilliantly to stop the ball going in the back of the net, but he does get caught out like this. This isn't uncommon to see for David Raya, but more of the fault should be on the defence. Let me know your thoughts on this performance. Is this a sort of performance that shows that Arsenal are champions in a league? I think Arsenal are going to win the league. It's that simple. And if you enjoy this, it would be great if you could subscribe to this channel. So we're then on to Manchester United Everton. This was a bizarre game because of the fact that Idrissa Gana Gueye got sent off for violent conduct against his own player. I mean, this is an interesting debate because he has just sort of slapped Michael Keane. I know you can't be slapping someone in the face, and that was always going to probably be a red card once they saw this. But it does seem a little bit harsh, considering it's just sort of the heat of the battle. It's not like you're striking an opposition, you're striking your own teammate. But anyway, that was the decision. I don't think there's much more to talk about with that. But I actually think what's more worth talking about is Everton's response after the red card. You would have expected their heads to drop. Maybe they start underperforming, struggling with 10 men and also that situation is very difficult to deal with as a player. But their response in general was really good. They showed a lot of fight. They showed a lot of work rate. They worked as a team, which was brilliant, I thought, to see. The amount of blocks that Tarkowski and Keane put in. Michael Keane, apart from that incident, was absolutely superb throughout this game. And they barely gave United anything. And they were more threatening in that first half for sure. And Dewsbury Hall with a brilliant finish off his right foot. Could have managed them better potentially. I do think that maybe that's a goal he looks back and goes, could I have done something slightly different? Could have I made that save? Because he does get a pretty good hand on it, but he can't stop it going into the back of the net. And in the second half, it was always going to be about, can Manchester United break down Everton? And probably they should have, considering they had that extra player on the pitch. But I did discuss in the preview, United aren't the best side right now at breaking down low blocks. They're very good on the counter when teams go at them a bit more. But when they've actually got to take on the offensive side of the game, I don't think they're actually that threatening. I thought Everton defended brilliantly, despite, I think, maybe being a bit too deep in their block at points. I thought Tarkowski and Keane again were absolutely brilliant. I thought the whole side worked really hard and showed a lot of fight, which was so important considering the situation that happened early in the game with Idrissa Gana Gueye. For David Moyes, this is a massive result. I also talked about in a previous video how if Everton don't sort of win the next 5, they will be more thinking about relegation zone than thinking about sort of going for top half, which I think they really can do this season. The other reason why it's such a big 3 points for David Moyes, though, is it's his first win at Old Trafford, not as the United manager, as well as this, it's Everton's second win in 33 years at Old Trafford. So it's a tough ground for Everton in general. It's a tough ground for David Moyes, but they have found a way to get 3 points, and they should be very happy with their result. Let me know your thoughts on this game. Do you think Everton deserved the 3 points? I certainly think they did. Let me know your thoughts on Premier League Game Week 12, and if you enjoyed this, it would be great if you subscribe to this channel, as well as liking the video.